My daughter-in-law told my son to put me in a retirement home. She said, "Your mother is just a burden now." Those words cut deeper than anything I had ever heard. But what none of them knew was that at my husband's will reading, the lawyer had a video to show us. And in that moment, everything changed. Before I tell you what happened that day, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and comment where you're watching from. I love hearing your stories and knowing how far our community reaches. My name is Evelyn Carter. I am 67 years old, and I have lived a full life filled with love, family, and memories. Just a year ago, I lost my husband, Richard, the man I spent over 4 decades with. He was kind, steady, and the center of my world. Losing him was like losing half of myself, but I tried to keep going, carrying the strength he always believed I had. I live in the same house where Michael, my son, grew up. Every corner of it holds a memory. Richard reading in his favorite chair, Michael running through the halls with his toy cars, the smell of Sunday dinners filling the kitchen. This house has been my safe place, even though sometimes it feels far too big and far too quiet. My son Michael is 38 now. He is hardworking, a man Richard and I were always proud of. He married Vanessa 5 years ago, and from the beginning, I tried to give them space and never overstep. I wanted Vanessa to see me as family, but she kept me at a distance. There was a coldness in her smile, a sharpness in her words that always reminded me that I was not truly welcome in her eyes. I told myself it was fine, that I didn't need her approval. I only wanted peace, and I wanted to be near my son. But deep inside, I knew things weren't right. The tension was growing, and soon it would break in the harshest way possible. The turning point in my quiet life came one ordinary evening. I had just finished washing the dishes after dinner. Michael and Vanessa were in the living room, speaking in low voices. At first, I thought nothing of it. Couples often have private conversations. But then I heard my own name. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, yet the words carried so sharply through the thin walls that they reached me clearly. Vanessa's voice was firm and cold. "Michael, this can't go on. Your mother is always here and it's dragging us down. You're not a little boy anymore. She's just a burden now. Don't you want to live your own life without her clinging on?" I froze, my hands still wet from the dishwater. A burden. That one word stabbed through my heart. For everything I had done, for every sacrifice I made to raise Michael after nights of exhaustion, after years of putting him first, to be labeled a burden felt like a cruel betrayal. I pressed my back against the kitchen wall, my breath uneven, listening, even though it tore me apart. Michael's voice came next, softer, uncertain. "Vanessa, she's my mom. She doesn't have anywhere else to go. This is her home, too." Vanessa didn't let up. "No, it's not. This is our home now, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life babysitting an old woman. You said yourself it's been difficult, and you know it's true. Think about us, about our future. We can't keep living like this. She needs to be put in a retirement home. That way she's taken care of, and we can finally breathe." The words hit me like a wave, leaving me trembling. I wanted to walk in there and defend myself, to remind her of the years I spent working double shifts after Richard lost his job, of how I saved every penny so Michael could go to college. But my legs felt heavy. My pride, my dignity held me back. I didn't want to beg for my own worth in my son's house. Michael didn't answer right away, and in that silence, I held on to a small hope that he would stand firm, that he would defend me without hesitation. But then I heard him sigh. "Vanessa, I need time to think. It's not an easy decision." That was all it took for my heart to break. He didn't say no. He didn't shut the idea down. He left it open, as if sending me away was something he might actually consider. I walked quietly to my bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. My chest ached as tears rolled down my face. For the first time, I felt like I had no place in my own family. That night, I barely slept. Memories of Richard came flooding back. He always promised me that I would never be alone, that our family would stand together no matter what. I whispered into the dark, "Richard, what should I do? Our son is slipping away from me, and I don't know how to hold on." The following week only made things worse. Vanessa stopped hiding her disdain. She sighed loudly when I entered the room, rolled her eyes if I asked Michael a simple question, and treated me like an unwanted guest in the house where I had once cooked, decorated, and cared for every inch of it. I felt myself shrinking, afraid to speak, afraid to make her anger flare up. One afternoon, Michael came into the kitchen where I was peeling apples. He looked tired, worn down. "Mom," he started, not meeting my eyes. "Vanessa and I have been talking. We think maybe a retirement home would be better for you. You'd have people to take care of you. You wouldn't feel lonely." I dropped the knife onto the cutting board. "Michael, I am not lonely. I have you. This is my home. Why would you send me away?" My voice shook, but I forced myself to look directly into his eyes. He shifted uncomfortably. It's a lot, Mom. Vanessa feels like we can't move forward with you always here. I don't know what to do." Hearing him say it out loud crushed me. My own son, my flesh and blood, was allowing his wife to push me aside. I turned away, unable to stop the tears. "If your father were, he would never let you speak to me like this." Michael's face fell, but he said nothing. He left the kitchen, leaving me alone with the weight of his silence. A few days later, I received a phone call from our family lawyer, Mr. Donovan. He said it was time to read Richard's will. My heart pounded as I hung up the phone. The timing felt almost cruel. At the very moment I was being cast aside, I was about to hear Richard's final words, his last wishes for me and for Michael. I wondered if Richard had known how strained things would become. The night before the will reading, I sat by the window, staring out at the stars. I remembered Richard's gentle voice, his steady hand in mine, the way he always reassured me. I whispered again, "Please, Richard, please don't let me face this alone." I didn't know then that Richard had left behind something more powerful than any of us expected. And soon, in that lawyer's office, the truth would come out. The morning of the will reading arrived, and I felt a storm of emotions I could barely contain. My hands trembled as I buttoned the simple navy dress I had worn to Richard's funeral a year earlier. It felt right to wear it again, almost as if I were carrying him with me into that room. My stomach twisted with dread, yet underneath it all was a flicker of determination. No matter what I heard, no matter how much Vanessa tried to humiliate me, I would not bow my head in shame. When Michael knocked on my bedroom door, I opened it to see him standing there in his suit. He looked tense, his jaw tight, as though the weight of his marriage and his loyalty to me were tearing him apart. For a moment, I saw my little boy again, the one who used to run to me when he scraped his knee, the one who whispered, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll protect you," when thunderstorms rattled the house. But that boy was buried deep inside the man who now hesitated to meet my eyes. "Are you ready, Mom?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "Yes, Michael, I'm ready." In the car ride to the lawyer's office, silence hung heavy between us. Vanessa sat in the front seat, her perfume filling the air. She kept glancing at her phone, smiling faintly, as if she were already celebrating. Every time I looked at her, I saw the smugness of someone who believed the future belonged entirely to her. She didn't speak to me, not even a polite word, as though I had already been erased. When we arrived at the office, Mr. Donovan greeted us warmly. He was an older man with kind eyes, someone who had been Richard's friend for decades. "Mrs. Carter," he said, taking my hand gently, "Richard thought the world of you. I want you to know that before we begin." His words made my chest tighten. I squeezed his hand in thanks and followed him into the conference room. The room itself was sterile and businesslike, with polished wood floors, shelves of law books, and a long table where the three of us sat across from Mr. Donovan. A large envelope sat in front of him, along with a sleek black box. My pulse quickened at the sight of it, though I didn't yet know why. Mr. Donovan cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming today. As you know, we're here to go over the last will and testament of Richard Carter. But before I read the document itself, Richard left something special that he asked me to share." He placed his hand on the black box. A recorded video message. Vanessa's eyebrows shot up. She leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. "A video? she asked, her tone dripping with impatience. What for? Mr. Donovan gave her a measured look. Richard wanted his words to be heard in his own voice. He said there were things he needed his family to understand. At that moment, the air shifted. My heart pounded as my breath caught in my throat. Richard's voice. I hadn't heard it since the day I kissed his forehead goodbye at the hospital. The thought of hearing him again filled me with both longing and fear. Michael glanced at me, his expression uneasy. Mom, he whispered, are you okay? I nodded slowly, though my hands were clenched tight in my lap. I need to hear him, Michael. Whatever it is, I need to hear it. Mr. Donovan pressed a button, and the screen at the end of the table flickered to life. The familiar face of my husband appeared, his eyes warm, his smile steady, as though he were sitting right there with us. I gasped softly, tears immediately welling in my eyes. For a moment, it was as if the room melted away and only Richard and I remained. Before Richard's voice even filled the room, I saw the panic flash across Vanessa's face. She shifted in her seat, clearly uncomfortable. Perhaps she had imagined this meeting would be quick and simple, a division of property and money in her favor. But she hadn't expected Richard himself to speak. My heart, which had been weighed down for weeks with sorrow and rejection, began to steady. Something deep inside whispered that Richard had known, that he had seen this storm coming before I ever did. He had always been thoughtful, always protective. Maybe, just maybe, he had left something behind to shield me one last time. As the video began, the sound of Richard's voice filled the room, strong and unwavering despite the illness that had taken him in the end. I reached for a tissue, gripping it tightly, bracing myself for what was to come. This was the moment. The choice I made to walk into this office, to face my son and daughter-in-law with dignity, was about to change everything. Richard's words would soon reveal the truth, and whether they brought comfort or more pain, I knew my life would never be the same after this day. The screen flickered, and there he was, my Richard. His hair was thinner, his cheeks a little sunken from the illness that claimed him, but his eyes still held the same warmth, the same strength that had carried me through every storm. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. His voice filled the room, steady and calm, and it was as if time itself had folded, bringing him back to me. My Evelyn, he began, his lips curving into a soft smile. If you're seeing this, it means I am gone, but don't be afraid. I want you to remember that I loved you every single day of our life together. You were my partner, my anchor, my home, and I want to start by thanking you. You gave me a beautiful life. Tears streamed down my face as his words poured out. He was speaking to me, not as a ghost, not as a memory, but as the man who had always kept his promises. Richard's tone grew more serious. I know you may be facing difficulties now. I know that when I am gone, the world may not always be kind to you. But Evelyn, you are not a burden. You never were, and you never will be. You are the heart of this family. The room went silent. I felt Vanessa's eyes shift toward me, but I couldn't look at her. My gaze was locked on Richard. He turned slightly in his chair on the video, as though speaking not just to me, but to Michael as well. Son, if you're watching this, listen carefully. Everything you have in your life, your education, your opportunities, your home, exists because of your mother. She sacrificed her comfort, her youth, and her health to make sure you never went without. When I lost my job all those years ago, she carried us. She worked double shifts, she skipped meals, and she held this family together when I could not. You may not remember every detail, but I do, and I want you to remember it now. Michael lowered his head, his face pale, his hands fidgeted on the table, guilt written across every line of his expression. Richard's voice grew firmer. Son, I raised you to be a good man. Don't let anyone convince you that honoring your mother is optional. The way you treat her will define the kind of man you truly are. If you fail her, you fail me. Do you understand? Vanessa shifted in her seat, her arms crossed tightly, her lips pressed into a thin line. She looked like she wanted to protest, but the power of Richard's voice silenced her. Then Richard turned back to me in the video, his eyes softening. Evelyn, I couldn't leave this world without protecting you one last time. That's why, in my will, the house, the savings, and everything I built goes directly to you, not to anyone else. You deserve security, comfort, and respect for the rest of your life. This is my promise to you, even from beyond the grave." I gasped, covering my mouth with trembling hands. I hadn't expected this. I hadn't asked for it. Yet hearing him say it filled me with a strength I hadn't felt in weeks. Richard paused, taking a shaky breath before continuing. "Michael, if you truly love your mother, you will respect these wishes. You will stand by her. Don't let greed, pride, or pressure take that away. And Vanessa," his eyes darkened slightly, as though he had anticipated everything, "if you cannot find it in your heart to treat Evelyn with kindness, then I suggest you step aside, because in this family, cruelty has no place." Vanessa's face flushed red. She opened her mouth to speak, but Mr. Donovan raised his hand, silencing her. The video drew to a close. Richard gave one final smile. "Evelyn, my love, hold your head high. You are not a burden. You are my blessing, and you always will be." Then the screen went black. The silence in the room was deafening. I sat frozen in my chair, my body trembling, my tears unstoppable. It felt as if Richard himself had reached across the divide of death to lift me back to my feet. Michael finally broke the silence. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have defended you. I should have never let anyone make you feel unwanted. Dad's right. You're the reason I have everything. I was blind and I let him down." His eyes were wet with shame and regret as he reached across the table to take my... For the first time in weeks, I felt the bond between us again, the bond of mother and son, strained but not broken. I squeezed his hand, letting him know forgiveness was possible, even if trust would take time to rebuild. Vanessa, on the other hand, looked furious. Her face hardened, her jaw set as she realized her plans had unraveled in front of her. She stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the floor. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "He's not here anymore. We don't have to listen to a dead man." Michael shot her a look I had never seen before, firm, resolute, filled with anger. "Enough, Vanessa. That was my father, and if you can't respect him, then you can't respect me. I won't let you treat my mother like this anymore." Her mouth opened, but no words came. She grabbed her purse, her heels clicking furiously against the wooden floor as she stormed out of the room. The door slammed behind her, leaving the three of us, me, Michael, and Mr. Donovan, sitting in the heavy silence that followed. For the first time since Richard passed, I didn't feel abandoned. I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen, loved, and protected, as though Richard had wrapped his arms around me one last time through that video. This was the moment that changed everything. I had come into that office fearing I would be erased, but instead, I walked out, knowing I mattered more than ever. When the video ended and Vanessa stormed out of the office, the silence that followed carried a weight I will never forget. For weeks I had felt small, unwanted, and powerless. But in that silence, I realized I was standing on stronger ground than I had ever known. Richard's words lingered in the air like a shield around me, protecting me even though he was gone. Michael still held my hand across the table. His eyes were red, his voice trembling as he spoke. "Mom, I've been blind. I let Vanessa push me into thinking you were a burden. I don't know how I could forget everything you've done for..." Dad was right. None of this, my career, my home, my life, would exist without you. I am so sorry. I looked at my son and saw both the boy I had raised and the man he had become. My heart ached, but it also softened. Forgiveness is not always easy, but it is something Richard taught me long ago. I squeezed Michael's hand and whispered, "You are my son, Michael. I will always love you. But love has to be shown, not just spoken. If you want to honor your father's words, start by remembering who I am and what I mean to this family." Michael nodded, tears streaming down his cheeks. In that moment, I knew he understood. He wasn't perfect, none of us are, but I saw the regret in his eyes, and I believed in the man Richard had raised him to be. Mr. Donovan cleared his throat gently, giving us both a moment to gather ourselves. Richard wanted his legacy to be clear. He left these instructions not out of anger, but out of love. He wanted you all to have peace. His kind words reminded me that Richard had thought of everything. Even in his last days, he was planning ahead to protect me and to guide our son. As Michael and I walked out of the lawyer's office, I felt lighter than I had in months. The air outside was crisp, the sun shining through the trees, and for the first time since Richard's passing, I felt hope. Vanessa was nowhere to be seen. She had chosen to walk away in anger, and while part of me feared what that meant for Michael's marriage, another part of me knew the truth. Sometimes people reveal their hearts when they don't get their way. Richard had seen her clearly, even when I tried to excuse her behavior. In the days that followed, the house felt different. Michael began visiting me more often, staying longer, sitting with me at the kitchen table where we shared quiet meals. He even fixed the loose railing on the porch without being asked, something Richard would have done himself. I could see he was trying, and though it would take time to rebuild the trust, I cherished the effort. Vanessa, on the other hand, grew more distant. She avoided the house, avoided me, and eventually stopped calling altogether. One evening, Michael confessed what I had already suspected. She doesn't want to be around, Mom. She says she can't live in a marriage where my loyalty is divided. But I told her, it's not divided. My loyalty to you and to Dad's memory is part of who I am. If she can't accept that, maybe we aren't meant to last. It broke my heart to see my son's marriage unravel. But it also reminded me of Richard's warning. Cruelty and greed have no place in a family. Vanessa had chosen her path, and while it hurt Michael, it also freed him from someone who never valued the bonds that truly matter. For me, the biggest change was inside. I no longer looked at myself through the lens of Vanessa's cruel words. I stopped whispering that word, burden, in my mind. Instead, I remembered Richard's voice, steady and strong, calling me a blessing. That word became my anchor. Every morning, I woke up and told myself, I am not a burden. I am the heart of this family. And slowly, I began to believe it again. Neighbors and old friends reached out when they heard about the will reading. Some offered sympathy, others admiration for Richard's foresight. One friend told me, Evelyn, it's rare for a man to see so clearly how important his wife is. Richard's message wasn't just for you. It was for all of us. To remember that behind every strong family is someone who gave everything quietly, without applause. Those words stayed with me. In the end, what Richard gave me wasn't just financial security. He gave me back my dignity, my voice, and my rightful place in the family. His last words reminded me that love doesn't die when a person leaves this earth. Love endures. It protects. It speaks even when the world tries to silence it. As I sit in the home Richard and I built together, I no longer feel alone. I feel his presence in the walls, in the memories, and most of all, in the way his words reshape the future. My son learned a painful lesson, but he learned it in time to make things right. And I, once again, found my strength. If you take anything from my story, let it be this. Never let anyone convince you that you are worthless. Your sacrifices, your love, your presence, these are treasures no one can take away. And sometimes, even when hope feels lost, love has a way of speaking up when you need it most. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with you.